You put a Queensland jersey on Dan Gagai and he finds a way to score a try.
Cam Munster, he's going to be the one to watch.
The hammer! He deserves a try!
Even though he's only young, he's such a big name, he's such a promising star.
Well, we've seen plenty of this in Origin. This is one of the best. McCartney will score.
And Queensland celebrates.
He smashed.
That's a brilliant rugby league try.
Chip and chase anyone? No? Something different? Mix it up.
Pride is a wonderful thing for a footballer.
And welcome back to the Queenslander Show. There's only two of us here today, Wally Lewis and myself. Lockie's abandoned us. Adam Jackson's off doing some other journalistic stuff. But we're going to dive straight in the deep end here, Wally. We can't go past this show without talking about the Queenslanders, State of Origin, held in Townsville, historic moment for good reasons and bad reasons. How do you think we went in that game?
Pretty poorly, Sam. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, love to be complimentary to the players and not bag them. That doesn't achieve too much at all, but I'm sure Coach Paul Green and the players themselves will admit that it wasn't a good performance from them, something that they could sit back and feel fairly comfortable with. If it has done one thing for Queensland in Game 2, it's inspire them. They've got to go out there, produce their best. They know that they certainly have much more to offer. And become a lot better, because it's going to take a very good Queensland performance in Game 2 to knock over the Blues. They do have an extremely good side that performed extremely well for their coach Brad Fittler, who has a massive smile on his face. But I've got to say that the Queenslanders have just got to be realistic and honest, take a look at themselves and realise it wasn't a performance that they would be happy with.
Like you said, Freddie, well-deserved smile on his face after that achievement in Townsville. But looking back, the first set of six for me, Wally, was... Queensland kicked off, a great chance and opportunity for us to set a standard. I think Tedesco catches it off the kickoff. We don't really get into him much. Tommy Turbo runs tackle 2, Tedesco tackle 3, Tommy Turbo tackle 4. Isaiah Yeo, first forward, takes the 5th hit up of the game, then they kick. Was that where we lost the game? Were we chasing our tail from that point on?
Oh, look, it wasn't where we lost it, I don't think, Sam. I can understand, the question there, but there used to be a bit of a rule in rugby league that if the backs come and take the first few tackles of a State of Origin game, you advise them that they're not quite welcome to do that, to make it as uncomfortable as possible. Certainly when the forwards charge up the middle, that's expected, and you can cop that. You've just got to get involved in the battle early. But to see that there was so much ground made by the New South Wales players, every one of them, each time they carted the ball, must have been quite upsetting for Coach Paul Green. I'm sure that he saw that. The players, perhaps they were a little bit nervous, and you'd expect that in an Origin match. But it takes a very good performance right from the opening play of the game to know that you've knuckled down, you've taken on the challenge ahead, and you're quite willing to do anything that's possible to make sure that you dictate terms right from the opening whistle.
Well, Wally, you mentioned the coach there of the Maroons, Paul Green. He made a comment after the match that he let a few things slide throughout the week in training. First of all, what does he mean by that? And how can he fix those things?
Well, Sam, I think he means there that he probably would have liked to have brought a couple of things in and insist that's the way that they play it. He probably thinks that, having a look at this team, they're the champs. So why change things? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But this was a wonderful New South Wales side, and I'm sure Paul will be saying to himself now, that's not the way that I probably would have insisted the game take place. He'll go back now to the one that's always been quite successful for him, and he'll blend that in with the players that he's got available, just in case they don't fit any of those styles of play that are required. And I think it's a tough thing to step in. I can sort of remember what it was like when I first came in, and it is a difficult time. You don't want to tell players to change their game. But if it's necessary to make things very uncomfortable for the opposition, well, so be it.
Yeah, a lot of outsiders looking in, Wally, after Paul's comments after the match, questioning whether he's the right guy for the job. And what's your thoughts on that?
Oh, he's been, I'm sure Greeny's been very hard on himself.
Yeah.
The media, well, they've jumped in and had a go, saying that that may not be the case. There's only been one game with him in charge, so it's hard to make a judgment on his ability to coach Queensland. That's hard marking. If they get up and win the games 2 and 3, well, I'm sure nobody will remember them. But it's tough. Certainly for Greeny, he'll feel a little bit guilty, but he's been there, done that at the highest level before. Coaching a premiership isn't easy, so I'm sure he'll admit that State of Origin is one step higher again.
Yeah.
Without doubt, but it is a wonderfully tough challenge, and the Blues certainly have a fairly good side on board. It's going to be tough to knock them over this time around.
We talk about the Blues there. 2 guys for them that absolutely dominated were Latrell Mitchell and Tommy Turbo, and they were kind of attacking Capewell all day.
Yeah.
Do we need to put Capewell maybe to a bench position, maybe play him in the forwards and get a specialist centre in? Is that a fixed?
Well, it's hard. I mean, we've been looking around for specialist centres. I know the selectors sort of had a look at everybody that was available, and they probably thought that they were going to get more of an effect out of the players that they did select, without being insulting to those that are playing. But it's extremely thin. Have a look over the years. We've had some wonderfully talented and tough centres represent Queensland. The Miles, Meninga, Inglis. It just went on, in leaps and bounds. But unfortunately, they're just not available at the moment. And without being disrespectful, I'm sure that they would all put their hand up and say it wasn't my best performance on the night, but I'm quite determined to make sure that I produce one next time around.
No easy fix, Wal. Any inclusions for you into Game 2?
I think it'll probably come down to the medical, just as much as anything. Kalen Ponga, he's one of those players. You have a look at, we were talking about Tommy Turbo coming in. He made life difficult for the defenders in front of him. He was using his evasive skills, his power. Ponga's got plenty of that, and if he's fit and ready to go, I think it's just quite natural that he will be chosen by the selectors. And Papali'i, he's one of those guys that I'm sure that he would have made life uncomfortable for the New South Wales forward. He would have ran into them with such power and speed that it would have been fairly difficult to hold him down, despite New South Wales having a very good forward pack. But usually when you're inspired by players such as Ponga and Papali'i, it's pretty easy for the rest of the players in the Maroon side to be inspired, to go on with the challenge and to be feeling almost like they're 10 foot tall and bulletproof.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Papali'i. He had a fantastic game on the weekend against the Brisbane Broncos. The Brisbane Broncos had an inclusion in their team, a guy who's been out of the game for 12 years in Carmichael Hunt. What did you think of his return to rugby league? Yeah,
somebody asked me just before kick-off, how do you think it's going to go? And I said, look, don't expect too much too soon. Kay has had plenty of experience playing in some wonderfully skilled games. He's come back into rugby league, and I think it might take a couple of games for him to get used to not just the game itself, but the standard of play that he's stepping into. He's represented at all levels previously, so we do know that he's got the ability, and it won't be too long till the form comes on the board.
Yeah, now the Brisbane Broncos and the whole NRL, we're approaching almost the halfway point of the season. What can we expect from the Broncos going forward, and Kevin Malters with his selections? What do you think is going to happen?
Just hoping for better performances. It wasn't too much. I know we've all sort of spoken, all the former Brisbane Broncos players, and I'm just glad that there hasn't been any bagging going on, rubbishing going on. The players are disappointed, naturally, but I don't think it's going to be anything easy that's going to be conquered overnight. It's going to take the Broncos quite some time, and Kevy's already put his hand up and said that he's still in his early stages, so he's going to feel comfortable by what happens around the halfway mark, 2/3 of the way through the season. The halfway mark has certainly been disappointing for him, but it's not going to be easy. And we've got to remember that the Broncos, the talent that they've had available is not the same as they had in your day when we had superstars, on the field. Making life tougher for the opposition every time they cart the ball.
Yeah. Now heading up north, Wally, the North Queensland Cowboys, after a great start against Manly, got a score and a half put on them. Are they still a realistic chance of making the 8?
Yeah, I think there's those positions that run from about 5th or 6th to 12th or 13th that have them sitting on fairly similar numbers on the points tally. So it's going to be right till the end, I think. We're going to have to wait until we see who is going to be in the finals. But North Queensland certainly have proven on a couple of occasions that they do have the ability to be able to knock over some very tough teams in the competition. It seems a lot easier, for a lot of people. The expectation that the Cowboys are going to be able to do it, but they've already proven on a number of occasions, Sam, that this is not out of their reach. They've beaten some good sides, and they've impressed their coach on a number of occasions. So, but consistency is the biggest challenge for all teams in this competition.
We talk about consistency. The other team, which we were speaking about at the start of the year, Queensland team that we thought was going to make the 8 was the Gold Coast Titans, and they had a test against the Roosters on the weekend and mounted a massive comeback in the second half, but just couldn't close it out. Is that where they're kind of lacking a little bit at the moment?
Yeah, I think it was, the confidence that was on board for the first 40, 50 minutes of that game wasn't impressive, and I'm sure their coach would be sitting down, taking a cold hard look at that and being extremely disappointed. But they're, as you said, the way that they came back in that game, and they weren't playing against a bottom 3 or a bottom 4 team. They were up against the Chooks. For a lot of experts in the game, they regard the Roosters as being genuine contenders for this title, and to be able to come back in the way that they did, and you could see that they were on the ropes. They were just almost ready for the knockout punch, the Roosters, and it was disappointing that the Gold Coast just couldn't deliver it. But I think despite the disappointment of not being able to bank 2 points in that game, they would have done themselves a fair bit of benefit in the confidence department, because they realise, hey, we are capable of doing this. We've got to start doing it consistently. At least we know that we can do it now.
Yeah. Now, just a curveball for you, Wally, just to finish off. Looking forward to State of Origin 2. Now, just going to put it out there, Reece Walsh from the Warriors, Sam Walker from the Roosters. Would you throw a young guy in like that just to test them out and see if they are Origin ready, or do you think they're still a bit green?
Probably still a little bit green, but Sam, I've always relied on, I think you might have heard me say it before, if you're good enough, you're old enough.
Yeah.
We've seen some wonderfully talented players over the years come in at 18 years of age. Gary Bowstead was one. I don't think GI was too old.
Would have been 19, yeah.
When he came into it. So superstars, when they get the opportunity, they will go out, and quite often a player of those talents, they only get better when they're surrounded by wonderfully talented players. Yeah. They know that they can do it. So I think we've got a couple of players there that are quite capable of going out and producing their best. And you can imagine just how they'd feel, 10 foot tall and bulletproof. And they'd be inspired, and I'm sure that they'd have the coach, Paul Green, reminding them that he expects them to go out there and show their best. And I don't think it's all that big a challenge. But, once again, if they can do it in the best company surrounding them, I think it's only going to inspire them to much bigger and better things.
Well, Wally, hopefully the Queensland selectors are watching this. It might be a few curveballs in for the next State of Origin. We'll see. And hopefully, fingers crossed, it's a Queensland victory and we can go down to Sydney and win it down there. Well, Lewis, thank you for joining me this week on the Queenslander Show. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.